They're both sealed.
It's not sealed, so it vents out.
But they're not sealed.
Correct. They're not fully sealed, right? They're closed.
Okay.
They're part.
I see.
But it vents out. It won't. It will vent back if this thing is completely full with nowhere else to go. There's only one place for the smell to go. But every place in California, as far as I know, these tanks are placed outside, so there shouldn't be a smell issue.
Okay.
It should not vent back. And if it does, in my experience, that's something with the air not getting through the P-trap or water not being in the P-trap itself.
Okay.
But it's not necessarily coming from the tank. Well, yeah. Everything runs downhill, right? So I need to slope down. I think that's why we need the 18 inches, because it's all gravity. So it can't go uphill. It all has to go downhill. We can install further. Like, I don't love installing tanks like really far out, because there's just a lot of things that need to be done to make sure that the pipes stay upright and rigid. But we'll try to find the closest place that we can have a slope. However, it's not ideal to have like a 20-foot run to the holding tank, right? Because then there's just like 20 foot of
Did you
pipe
guys
sticking out.
put a pump on it?
On this? No.
Yeah. There's
No, not for waste.
Water only.
no water.
Yeah. For your water tank, most important thing that I'm going to tell you, and I've said this probably to you every time I talk to you, is non-potable water. It's not meant to be ingested, not meant to be drank. It's for flushing toilet, washing your hands. Please make sure that your customers understand that. I've had issues in the past where people have been putting this water in places that they shouldn't go to, coffee pots or other things. So it's extremely important. And that's why I say this every time, because the person that told me after we had this incident, like, I didn't know it was non-potable. And I was like, so every time I talk about our water, I will tell you, I will say this every time, I'm a broken record. It's non-potable water.
We put a sticker on there. So they see that.
Our tanks are also non-potable water tanks. What that means is you cannot put potable water into our tanks. Once you put non-potable water into something, it can never be potable again. We do not provide potable water or potable water tanks. It's not a service that we can do. So if the customer wants potable water, that's perfectly fine. That's not something that we're able to provide. This is going to be your standard water pump. This pump is strong enough to handle 2, maybe 3 restrooms. Once we're getting to like restroom trailers with multiple toilets or multiple sinks, things of that nature, this pump will not be able to provide enough pressure. How the pump works, water comes in, it's going to go into here, and it goes out. It will run until it's pressurized, meaning that the pump's going to keep pushing water until all the water comes back to the pump, and it's pressure, so then it's going to stop pumping.
What is the PSI on it?
It's on the box. I'll look it up before.
I want to say it's in the 50, 60 PSI range.
50?
Yeah.
About same thing as your household.
Yeah. Once it's pressurized, the pump turns off. If the pump never turns off, 75 PSI. If the pump never turns off, that means something inside this trailer is requesting water. The most common thing is the flap doesn't go all the way down on your toilet, right? Toilet flap doesn't go down. The water will go into the toilet and then run right into the holding tank. And within an hour, this will be completely drained. So
life expectancy on those pumps?
if it should last in not super hot weather, it should last the entirety of the thing. The time the pump burns out is when it's running without water, right? Customer runs out of water, it happens, but if they don't know to unplug the pump, then the pump's just going to keep trying to pump, and it's going to continue to do so until it stops working.
And they
The
have,
reason I ask is we've had a lot of customers that call in saying that there's a lack of water, and I've gone out personally, and these 3.5 pumps don't. It's like while you flush the toilet and you go to wash your hands,
Yeah.
there's very minimal water
Yeah.
coming out of the faucet.
Yep.
And then the toilet keeps running.
Because it's trying to fill up.
Pressure for
Yes.
water to build up in the tank to close the flapper, so then the tank gets empty, then they're calling you guys to go out and do a refill.
Yeah, in my experience, if you're getting to the point where you flush your toilet and you're not getting enough pressure, if it's not the most common thing is sometimes like the aerator has
Correct.
stuff in it. If that's not the problem, then we have to replace the pump because the pump is just not providing enough pressure at that point.
all of the pumps have been replaced with exterior pumps, right? Like outdoor pumps? Because there was a while where we were getting inside pumps instead. And having to go out and having them replaced.
It should be exterior. That must have been I'll double check on that. Yeah, I'll double check for stock.
What's
That
the
was in
question?
this area, obviously.
There
They've
was
all been replaced with exterior pumps because they said at some point they were getting interior pumps.
This was
Yeah, that was
a
another
couple
thing
years.
I ran a couple years back when I was looking at modeling where the exterior pumps were being used and left out. So when it was raining, a lot of it was stored out and customers were having water.
Yeah, we'll follow up with that. It shouldn't be an issue that we should be running into, but we'll make sure that that's not something that's happening. This is going to be your normal filter. This is going to prevent anything from in here. I'm saying this because I get a lot of these things. We use hydrant water, right? Go to a hydrant, we fill up, the water goes in. It's not, again, because it's not potable water. It's not It's not always going to be the cleanest water. If a customer complains, I can put chlorine in it, but some customers will complain about the chlorine smell too. So I take that. I will personally always ask the customer if they say like, "Oh, I feel like my water's dirty." Okay, I can put chlorine. Are you okay with the chlorine smell? Because I've had customers go from one side to the other, but there's no medium, right? It's either going to be the water. If you're not unhappy with the color, shape, size of the water, then we got to put chlorine in it, and then that's just kind of the process that goes in there.
Do all your pumps come with that filter?
This one is built in. This one comes with was in the pump, so it should. This will prevent anything big, right? Any type of actual physical materials from getting into the trailer itself. So to go in here, can come through here, run through there. The pump runs 24/7. The only thing that I ask is when we schedule the install, one, make sure that the trailer's already set. Two, make sure the trailer has power. If the trailer doesn't have power, I can't test the pump. If we can't test the pump, I have no idea if it's working until they get power. And I don't know necessarily when that's going to be, and then that will cause another few days of issues because we're trying to go through this, that, and the other to figure out if there's power to the pump or whatever the case may be.
Is that pump mounted in some way?
Normally it's mounted.
Okay.
Normally, like they'll have 4 brackets here, and then
Is that right?
they'll go.
Yeah.
Dumb question I got asked.
No, it's good.
All these are.
So they used to.
For like my USS sales guys, if you ever have a question of if that pump's working or not, what I do is I just take the side that goes from the pump off, and then just let it run. Unplug it, turn it on. If water comes out and shoots about 2 feet, pump's working. If water drizzles out, gotta replace the pump. Also know that because this is pressurized, when you take this off, you will get wet. I've been sprayed many a time. But that's just like, it's a very simple thing you guys can do if you guys are out in the field and someone says that they're complaining about their pump. If you just take this side off and then you plug it in, you'll know if the pump's working. If the pump doesn't turn on, the pump doesn't. If the pump shoots water about 2 feet, pump's working fine. That means if there's water pressure issues, something's happening between here and the exit, which again, if it's a sink, oftentimes it's the aerator. Stuff gets in the aerator, causes the sink to go slow. Any other questions?
Sometimes you'll have a circuit breaker shutting it.
Yeah.
Source.
One question. If the water tank and the waste tank, if there's no water added to the water tank, what are the common reasons why there's overflow? Is it only because when somebody tries to add more water?
There should be no overflow. So technically this is 300 and this is 250, right?
Okay.
So this empties, this fills.
Right.
I still have space, right? There should be, unless water's added for some sort of reason, for any reason, this should be a completely, perfectly closed system. So much so you can do this, and water's not coming out.
Unless something's being dumped inside the sink or toilets.
Correct. Unless something's added.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
But like if this is the only water source, then life's good.
Or if you guys missed the service.
Correct. If we didn't service this, but we service this, yes, which is fairly uncommon, but yes, that's. If this gets filled for any reason and this doesn't get emptied, that's what overflows, right? The other thing I wanted to also mention that this is just my general go-to. If the customer has city water for whatever reason, they want city water, then I suggest a minimum of 2 tanks. This will solve a lot of issues because they will always tell you they're not going to overflow, and they will always overflow because the people in the trailer, once they have city water, always forget unlimited water, limited hold. So my suggestion always is, if you guys ask my opinion, if they're going to have city water, then they need a minimum of 2 tanks. They'll tell you I only have one guy in there. They're only using it every other day of the week. It's fine. I always suggest 2 tanks.
What about extra service instead of 2 tanks for sites that
The-
can't accommodate 2 tanks?
That's fine too. The reason for 2 tanks is just to allow for the extra overflow, so we have some extra time. The problem is I'm trying to get it to the point where we're not overflowing and having to have a 911 emergency issue. Multiple services is obviously like however we accomplish it, but my general thing is like if you had that second tank, then that gives us a little bit of extra time. I bring this up just because it's a common thing. Our standard trucks have about 1,500 gallons of waste, right? So again, for larger sites, when we start talking logistics, there's only so much waste that one truck can remove. So that's when, if you need bigger tanks or more water or whatever, we need to be able to send tanker trucks. There's a lot more logistical things that need to be added so we can get bigger trucks in there. Because ideally, I don't like sending one truck to do something multiple times. It's just it's a very time-consuming process. So if I have to send a bigger truck, we can, but then we got to make sure that site has access for a bigger truck to kind of roll in, do its job, and then roll out.
Is there a recommended ratio to occupants to the size of this tank?
Yes, it's in the holding tank calculator that we will send out after all of this.
So it's really important to pre-qualify the number of services based on head count in the trailer. You know, many times we have meetings and we get blasted for service issues. USS, you didn't show up, the tank's full, the tank overflowed, and then we find that the tank is set up on 1 time per week service, and there's 20 people using the trailer. So here are some variables, some additional considerations, and they're all kind of baked into this holding tank, water tank calculator. We'll get that sent out, and then we also have a logic sheet that explains the math and the thought process behind it. But you have to factor how many days a week is the trailer being utilized. Is it 5? Is it 6 days, 7 days? How many shifts? Is there janitorial after hours where a crew comes in, they run water, they use the toilets, and then what is the ramp up? So day 1 of that project, there may be 5 people, but in 3 months, 6 months, there may be 10 people, 20 people, 30 people. You have to consistently monitor that, ask those questions, and then we can accommodate those service frequency interval changes for you to put you in position to not have customer service issues. And then what happens, you create a better, what we call CX, customer experience, and then, you know, for future projects, they shift their business or they move that business back to Mobile Modular.
Hey, Chuck, is there a cheat? I think you probably said it before, but everything you just said are great qualifying questions. Is there a cheat sheet out there that has some of these questions?
Yes, yeah. So it's all in the calculator. It's all broken down and segmented, and then we have a logic sheet that kind of talks about janitorial service, shifts. So it's all in there.
Things to ask what you're asking.
Exactly.
Great, thank you.
Exactly.
What size is this waste tank?
250 gallons.
And that's
250. They're technically both 250. This is technically 300, but we call it 250.
So John also mentioned, you know, potentially having 2 holding tanks. So what we would do, we would daisy chain or pigtail.
Yep, we would just
the 2 tanks together.
connect the second tank here, and the second tank would go lengthwise. In this
Can't
scenario,
be stacked.
No.
That would be nice.
So the other thing too, I was just at a project site in Texas a couple months ago, and they had so many people utilizing the trailer. It was Swift Transportation. So all the drivers would come in, they would use the trailer, they would clock in, they would wash their hands, they would leave. 3 shifts, 24 hours a day. So, so what we ended up doing, instead of a 250 water tank, we put a 1,000-gallon black water tank. It's big. I have a picture. I can show it to you. But the point is, it's an eyesore. It's huge. but it fits the need and it accommodates the patrons utilizing the trailer and the usage and capacity. So we can work with you during those unique situations where, you know, the head count, the number of people utilizing the trailers is just too much.
Other thing that I just came up with, if the customer buries this tank for any reason, if they dig it down, this is not load bearing. They cannot put anything on top of it, right? No dirt, no nothing. Any weight comes here, it will collapse the tank, which then just removes a lot of space in the tank, so then it's not now no longer 250 gallons. So if they bury it for whatever reason, which your customers love to do, they love things being neat, out the way, looking clean. They just need to make sure that they don't put any weight on the actual top. They can put like plywood that goes the length of it and then put wood on the top of that, but we have to make sure that we always have access to the port, right? So this port right here would be where your waste would go in. This port right here is where we would service it. We have to have access to that port. Our guys can't go down in holes. We're not able to go into enclosed spaces. We have to be able to open up an access, stick a wand down there, pull the wand out, close access. They can't, they're not able to go into tight spaces. We're not trained for that.
Sandbags are fine though, right?
As long as they're, like everything's on the corner, right? Like you can stand on this on the corner. It's gonna be safe. It's just a problem when you put weight in the actual center.
Had a flooding site, that's what they asked.
Dolce.
I've done it before. It's not my first rodeo. Couple other things. This is just our techs can't like throw their wands over fences, or like I need direct access, right? If we throw something over the fence, the wand is going over something. If it moves or gets pierced, now we have other issues.
How far can you park your truck?
For waste, I can park my truck pretty far. For water, I would love it within 20 feet. Waste, I have a lot more space. And there's also like there's extenders I can connect, which would be like a big hose that would just sit in here. It can run 20 feet, and then we can connect it there, and it will store it.
We have some extreme sites in San Francisco, right? We can get pretty creative. We can carry additional hoses and stuff like that. That stuff has to be communicated.
Yeah, if we know it beforehand, there's a lot of things we can do, and there's a lot of solutions. Some of it we'll have to talk to the customer about making sure it doesn't grow legs, but we can discuss it, and we can be very